Saint Sophia. Mosaics. The church was richly decorated with mosaics throughout the centuries. They either depicted the Virgin Mother, Jesus, saints, or emperors and empresses. Other parts were decorated in a purely decorative style with geometric patterns. During the sack of Constantinople, the Latin Crusaders vandalized valuable items in every important Byzantine structure of the city, including the golden mosaics of the Saint Sophia. Many of these items were shipped to Venice, whose Doge, Enrico Dandolo, had organized the invasion and sack of Constantinople. Following the building's conversion into a mosque, many of its mosaics were covered with plaster due to Islam's ban on representational imagery. This process was not completed at once, and reports exist from the 17th century, in which travelers note that they could still see Christian images in the former church. In 1847–49, the building was restored by two Swiss-Italian brothers, Gaspar and Giuseppe Frassati, and Sultan Abdulmejid allowed them to also document any mosaics they might discover during this process. This work did not include repairing the mosaics, and after recording the details about an image, the Fossatus painted it over a cane. This work included covering the previously uncovered faces of two Seraphim mosaics, located in the center of the building. The building currently features a total of 4 of these images, and 2 of them are restorations in paint, created by the Fossatus in order to replace 2 images of which they could find no surviving remains. In other cases, the Fossatus recreated damaged decorative mosaic patterns in paint, sometimes redesigning them in the process. The Fossati records are the primary sources about a number of mosaic images, now believed to have been completely or partially destroyed in an earthquake. These include a great mosaic of Christ Pantocrator in the dome, a mosaic over a now unidentified door of the poor, a large image of a jewel-encrusted cross, and a large number of images of angels, saints, patriarchs, and church fathers. Most of the missing images were located in the building's 2 tympanum. The Fossatus also added a pulpit, minbar, and the 4 large medallions on the walls of the nave, bearing the names of Muhammad and Islam's the first caliphs. Mosaics. Imperial Gate. Imperial Gate mosaics are located in the tympanum above the gate, used only by the emperors when entering the church. Based on style analysis, it has been dated to the late 9th or early 10th century. The emperor with a nimbus or halo could possibly represent Emperor Leo VI the Wise or his son Constantine VII Porphyrogenitus bowing down before Christ Pantocrator, seated on a jeweled throne, giving his blessing and holding in his left hand an open book. The text on the book reads as follows: "Peace be with you. I am the light of the world." On each side of Christ's shoulders is a circular medallion, on his left the Archangel Gabriel, holding a staff, on his right his mother Mary. Mosaics. Southwestern entrance. Virgin and Child was the first of the post-iconoclastic mosaics. It was inaugurated by Patriarch Photius, and the emperors Michael III and Basil I. This mosaic is situated in a high location on the half-dome of the apse. Mary is sitting on a throne without a back, holding the child Jesus on her lap. Her feet rest on a pedestal. Both the pedestal and the throne are adorned with precious stones. These mosaics were believed to be a reconstruction of the mosaics of the 6th century that were previously destroyed during the iconoclastic era by the Byzantines of that time, as represented in the inaugural sermon by the Patriarch Photios. However, no record of figural decoration of Saint Sophia exists before this time. The mosaics are set against the original golden background of the 6th century. The portraits of the archangels Gabriel and Michael, largely destroyed in the bema of the arch, also date from the 9th century. Mosaics. Emperor Alexander. The Emperor Alexander mosaic is not easy to find for the first-time visitor. Located in the 2nd floor in a dark corner of the ceiling. It depicts Emperor Alexander in full regalia, holding a scroll in his right hand and a globus cruciger in his left. A drawing by Fossati showed that the mosaic survived until 1849, and that Thomas Whitmore, founder of the Byzantine Institute of America, who was granted permission to preserve the mosaics, assumed that it had been destroyed in the earthquake. 8 years after his death, the mosaic was discovered largely through the researches of Robert Van Nys. Unlike most of the other mosaics in Saint Sophia, which had been covered over by ordinary plaster, the Alexander mosaic was simply painted over, and reflected the surrounding mosaic patterns, and thus was well hidden. It was duly cleaned by the Byzantine Institute's successor to Whitmore, Paul Underwood. 6-winged seraphim. One of the more recent and significant discoveries is a 1.5 meters mosaic panel of a 6-winged seraphim, obscured from the light of day, since Swiss architect Gaspar Fossati headed restorations on the basilica. The seraphim is believed to be one of 4 mosaic angels, depicted in each of the 4 pendentives of the dome, as guardians of heaven, 2 of which were restored by recreating the mosaics in paint. Mosaics. Empress Zoe. The Empress Zoe mosaics on the eastern wall of the southern gallery date from the 11th century. Christ Pantocrator, clad in a dark blue robe, as always the custom in Byzantine art, is seated in the middle against a golden background, giving his blessing with the right hand and holding the Bible in his left hand. On either side of his head are the monograms IC and XC, meaning Jesus Christ, and he is flanked by Constantine Menomachus and Empress Zoe, both in ceremonial costumes. He is offering a purse, as symbol of the donation he made to the church, while she is holding a scroll, symbol of the donations she made. The inscription over the head of the emperor says, Constantine, pious emperor and Christ the God, King of the Romans, Menomachus. The inscription over the head of the empress reads as follows: Zoe, the very pious Augusta. The previous heads have been scraped off and replaced by the 3 present ones. Perhaps the earlier mosaic showed her first husband Romanus III Argyrus, or her adopted son Michael IV. Another theory is that these mosaics were made for an earlier emperor and empress, with their heads changed into the present ones. Mosaics. Comnenus. The Comnenus mosaics, equally located on the eastern wall of the southern gallery, date from 1122. The Virgin Mary is standing in the middle, depicted, as usual in Byzantine art, in a dark blue gown. She holds the child Christ on her lap. He gives his blessing with his right hand while holding a scroll in his left hand. On her right side stands Emperor John II Comnenus, represented in a garb embellished with precious stones. He holds a purse, symbol of an imperial donation to the church. Empress Irene stands on the left side of the Virgin, wearing ceremonial garments and offering a document. Their eldest son Alexius Comnenus is represented on an adjacent pilaster. He is shown as a beardless youth, probably representing his appearance at his coronation age 17. In this panel one can already see a difference with the Empress Zoe mosaics, that is 1 century older. There is a more realistic expression in the portraits instead of an idealized representation. The Empress is shown with plaited blonde hair, rosy cheeks and gray eyes, revealing her Hungarian descent. The Emperor is depicted in a dignified manner. Mosaics. Dioceses. The Dioceses mosaic probably dates from 1261. It was commissioned to mark the end of 57 years of Roman Catholic use, and the return to the Orthodox faith. It is the third panel situated in the imperial enclosure of the upper galleries. It is widely considered the finest in Saint Sophia, because of the softness of the features, the humane expressions and the tones of the mosaic. The style is close to that of the Italian painters of the late 13th or early 14th century, such as Duccio. In this panel the Virgin Mary and John the Baptist, both shown in 3/4 profile, are imploring the intercession of Christ Pantocrator for humanity on Judgment Day. The bottom part of this mosaic is badly deteriorated. This mosaic is considered as the beginning of the Renaissance in Byzantine pictorial art. The Byzantine Institute of America began testing the wall, where it was believed the Great Dioceses mosaic might still exist, beneath layers of plaster. The first incision in the plaster took place in 1934. The first season of work took 4 months, and ended in late November of the same year. The panel is 5.95 meters wide and 4.08 meters tall. For another 4 years, work continued on the uncovering of the mosaic by Thomas Whitmore and his assistants. Although the actual removal of plaster took only 1 year, further seasons of work were required to consolidate and restore the mosaic. Publication of the discovery of the mosaic created a sensation in the art world. Never before had a mosaic of this artistry been seen, and the level of technique surpassed anything seen before. The discovery of the mosaic was a sad reminder of how much of Byzantine monumental art has been lost over time. The location of the mosaic of Dioceses is open to the public today. It is a must-see for anyone visiting Istanbul. No photograph is the mosaic justice, as varied placement of the mosaic cubes creates a shimmer of light that cannot be captured by the camera. Many consider this mosaic among the greatest treasures of world art and culture. Among Christians it is often called the finest representation of Christ. It is a great tragedy that most of the mosaic has been lost, but the survival of the beautiful faces of Christ, His mother and Saint John the Baptist, is nothing short of miraculous. Mosaics. Northern Tympanum. The northern tympanum mosaics feature various saints. They have been able to survive due to the very high and unreachable location. They depict Saints John Chrysostom and Ignatius the Younger standing, clothed in white robes with crosses, and holding richly jeweled holy Bibles. The names of each saint is given around the statues in Greek in order to enable an identification for the visitor. The other mosaics in the other tympanum have not survived, probably due to the frequent earthquakes, as opposed to any deliberate destruction by the Ottoman conquerors. Mosaics. The Fossati restoration. The Fossatis, architects and brothers, were natives of the Italian-speaking region of Switzerland, who were commissioned by Sultan Abdul-Majid to clean and restore the St. Sophia Mosque, renovating its exterior and interior. The work was completed 2 years later. The Fossatis understood the historical significance of the mosaics, and prepared drawings and watercolors of them. Hoping for Russian patronage, the Fossatis presented their work to Tsar Nicholas I. Although the Tsar expressed interest in the drawings, the discussion of a subvention for publication was postponed for an indefinite length of time. Ultimately, the Fossatis studies would not be published until more than a century later. Out of respect for Muslim religious customs prohibiting the representation of humans, the figural mosaic panels were recovered with plaster and painted. The Fossatis left the ornamental Justinian mosaics exposed in painted areas of missing tesserae, with images matching the surviving patterns. After completing the project, Gaspar Fossati published an album of lithographs made from his watercolors, including the exterior and interior of Saint Sophia, and dedicated it to Sultan Abdul-Majid. Thomas Whitmore claimed that Saint Sophia's mosaics have survived largely due to the work of the Fossatis. The extent of their consolidation and restoration is evident in vast areas of the vaults and walls in the narthex, temple, dome, and galleries. The Fossatis had strengthened the mosaics with iron clamps, before recovering them with plaster. The conservators of the Byzantine Institute, who consolidated and cleaned the original mosaics, were critical of some of the Fossati methods of conservation. In their restoration of Saint Sophia, the Fossatis altered the style of the original exterior and interior decoration, in order to suit the tastes of both the imperial courts of Europe and of the Sultan's court. The new romantic orientalizing style of Saint Sophia's decor was popularized through the Fossatis album, both in Europe and in Turkey. In contrast to the 19th century restoration, the Byzantine Institute Conservation Campaign reoriented Saint Sophia in the direction of its original appearance. Mosaics. 20th century restoration. A large number of mosaics were uncovered in the 1930s by a team from the Byzantine Institute of America, led by Thomas Whitmore. The team chose to let a number of simple cross images remain covered by plaster, but uncovered all major mosaics found. Because of its long history as both a church and a mosque, a particular challenge arises in the restoration process. The Christian iconographic mosaics are being gradually uncovered. However, in order to do so, important, historic Islamic art would have to be destroyed. Restorers have attempted to maintain a balance between both Christian and Islamic cultures. In particular, much controversy rests upon whether the Islamic calligraphy on the dome of the cathedral should be removed, in order to permit the underlying Pantocrator mosaic of Christ as Master of the world to be exhibited. Mosaics. Preservation through imaging. 16 films, made in both color and in black and white, show the process of the work by the Byzantine Institute staff in different sections of the building. Most of the films were produced by Pierre Skender with the assistance of Gregory. A color film shows the Institute staff with Thomas Whitmore at work on the soffit of the Bema Arch. A diary notes that 30 feet of film was shot to document the work on the Archangel. Along with the conservation of the mosaics, the Byzantine Institute organized the production of tracings, painted copies, and hand-painted casts of them. Institutions, as well as private benefactors, financed the conservation effort, and the copies of the mosaics were produced so that benefactors could purchase them. Judging from the archival materials of the Byzantine Institute, much of which remains unpublished, the campaign at St. Sophia was one of the largest and most significant projects of its type in this century. The archival materials include blueprints and paintings, preliminary reports and diaries, charts and photographs, architectural drawings and tracings, plans, pencil rubbings of masons' marks, and cramp charts. The comprehensive photographic survey of the church produced unique images of Saint Sophia that remain among the best depictions of the building and its mosaics. The study of these archival materials continues to enhance our understanding of the evolution of the mosaic program in Saint Sophia, from the creation of the original Justinian mosaics to the present day.